The modern world runs on something you never think about. Rare earth metals. Invisible, unsexy, buried in the supply chain like a secret ingredient in every piece of technology you use. Your phone, your laptop, fighter jets, electric cars, satellites, missiles, wind turbines. Every machine that defines the 21st century depends on a handful of elements most people can't even name. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, yttrium, the quiet gods of modern power. And here's the uncomfortable truth. One country controls them. Not the US, not Europe, China. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a blueprint. A slow, strategic, methodical capture of the most important resource of the digital age. And America? It didn't just fall behind. It handed over the lead. Rare earth metals aren't actually rare. They're everywhere. The problem is refining them. Extracting them safely, cheaply, and at scale requires infrastructure nobody wanted to build, except China. While the US argued about environmental regulations, budget cuts, and outsourcing, China quietly bought up mines, invested in refining plants, and took control of the entire supply chain. Not just the minerals, the processing, the magnets, the manufacturing lines, the export routes, everything. Today, China handles nearly 90% of global rare earth processing. Let that sink in. The country building your electronics controls the materials inside your electronics. That's leverage. That's power. That's the new battlefield. Meanwhile, the US looks like a giant with no armor. One major rare earth line left. One processing facility trying to restart what it abandoned decades ago. Whole industries dependent on imports. Every supply chain one political decision away from collapse. The Pentagon knows it, tech companies know it, electric car makers know it. They just don't talk about it because a dependency this deep is a vulnerability nobody wants to admit. This isn't just economics, it's strategy. China didn't dominate rare earths by accident. It weaponized patience. First, it subsidized mining to drive global prices down, making Western mines unprofitable. When competitors shut down, China kept going. Then it invested in refining, the hard, dirty work nobody else wanted. When demand exploded, China became the only reliable supplier. And now it controls the choke point that determines who builds the future. A fighter jet needs hundreds of kilos of rare earth metals. A single F-35 uses more than 400 kilograms. Missiles rely on rare earth sensors. Laser targeting systems rely on rare earth coatings. Communications rely on rare earth magnets. You can't fight a modern war without these materials. You can barely run a modern society without them. So what happens if that supply is threatened? If exports tighten? If a geopolitical crisis turns a trade dependency into a weapon? Everything slows. Everything stalls. Factories halt. Production lines freeze. Prices spike. Entire industries panic. America's military edge? Blunted. Silicon Valley? Paralyzed. The renewable energy push? Stuck in the dirt. You can't build a clean future when you don't control the minerals that power it. You'd say, but US can just open more mines. Sure, but mining is the easy part. Refining is the monster. It's hazardous, expensive, tightly regulated, and dominated by expertise that China spent more than 30 years perfecting. You don't just flip a switch and resurrect an industrial ecosystem like that. You can't rebuild it in a fiscal quarter or even a decade, and you definitely can't YouTube your way to industrial dominance. This isn't coding. Processing rare earth elements is chemistry, engineering, logistics, and institutional memory fused together. And that's the part everyone forgets. The memory, the skill, the quiet competence earned through trial, error, and thousands of mistakes Western industries never got around to making. Processing plants aren't phone apps. They're colossal furnaces, centrifuges, spectrometers, and human expertise humming in synchronized chaos. They require an army. Engineers who know the chemistry, workers who know the machinery, executives who understand the market.
governments that understand the stakes. It's the kind of ecosystem you only get after decades of doing the hard work everyone else avoided.
And now, let's talk about the future. Because China isn't hitting pause. It isn't satisfied with dominance. It's building something bigger, a full-spectrum supply chain empire that stretches from raw extraction to final manufacturing. China is expanding by building rare earth magnet plants, battery factories, EV supply lines, and semiconductor-adjacent industries. It's buying stakes in global mining companies, signing long-term supply contracts, and locking in resources the world doesn't even realize it will need yet. This isn't resource checkers. This is supply chain chess, and China is already thinking 10 moves ahead. Where does this leave the US? Behind, flat-footed, dependent, watching a race it used to lead from the sidelines, but not doomed. Not yet, because there is a path forward.
It starts with diversifying global suppliers, reopening U.S. refineries, and investing aggressively in allied partners like Australia and Canada. It means mining smarter, recycling old electronics for recoverable metals, and accelerating research into next-gen magnets that use fewer or zero rare earth elements. It requires new laws, new incentives, and a national strategy that treats these resources the same way we treat energy, defense, and cybersecurity, as pillars of national survival. Because the rare earth race isn't about who has the minerals, it's about who controls the flow of materials the future depends on. The countries that command this supply chain will decide who builds the fastest computers, the strongest militaries, the cleanest power grids, and the smartest machines. If the US wants to catch up, it has to start acting like the clock is already at zero, because this isn't a battle fought with tanks or treaties. It's fought with magnets, metals, and industrial muscle, buried deep in the earth but powering every screen, sensor, weapon, engine, and innovation of the modern world. The rare earth race isn't approaching, it's already here. And the nation that wins it won't just control resources, it will control the architecture of modern civilization itself.
If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit subscribe and join us here at Viral, where we simplify the world one story at a time. Your support helps us create more clear, visual explanations of the events shaping our future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.